Big facts. 60% of D&D players would be happier playing Dungeon.
Do you have any sort of evidence to...
No!
Then how can you...
Let me ask you a question. What got you into D&D? For a vast majority of us, it's an excuse to tell great stories with our friends, while putting it into a game format, so it's not weird. Even the hardcore RPGers who are too cool to save the kingdom and claim they just want to kill shit and get loot, want to tell a story, except instead of telling lame stories like saving the kingdom from a dragon invasion, they want to tell super cool and edgy stories about murdering random people and overcoming obstacles. They just don't call it that because they're really cool. What Dungeon World does so well is take away all of the obstacles that get in the way of telling a good story. And by obstacles, I mean rules.
You can't have a game without rules.
You're right. Maybe I should give you the rundown on what Dungeon World actually is before you hurt yourself in your confusion. Dungeon World is a tabletop fantasy role-playing game, that's what D&D is, where you and your friends get together to delve into deep dungeons, find hordes of treasure, and tell epic fantasy stories together. It uses the Powered by the Apocalypse system, which means it's rules light and roleplay heavy-ish. You only roll the dice when there's a big decision that no one knows the outcome to, and the creators have described it as having an old school style with modern rules. So it does, in fact, have rules. But what it does so well is ultimately strip away all of the complex rules that bog down your game. For example, instead of wasting time rolling perception whenever a character goes into a room, rolling investigation whenever they find like a statuette, and rolling arcane to see if they understand what the carvings on that statuette mean, they can just roll their discern realities roll, which is 2d6 plus their wisdom save, and just condense all of that and continue telling the story. Ultimately, nobody cares whether or not crit damage is double dice or double what you rolled. No one started playing D&D for that. They started playing because they wanted to tell epic stories with their friends. But where this stripped down system really shines is in combat. Look, combat, as it's written in D&D, sucks.
Millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror.
I mean, just look at how you initiate combat.
The chieftain's lip curls and his brow furrows. You see his hand grip the handle of his war axe as he says, "You've dishonored me, you've dishonored my family, and you've dishonored my clan. And now, you're gonna pay." Roll initiative. Let's go! Barnacles, 6. Give me 1 sec, I just need to write this down. Just 1 second here while I note the, okay, cool. Sorry, what was your initiative again?
On the other hand, in Dungeon World, the flow never stops. Everything's cinematic.
The chieftain takes a wild swing at you, Brokage. Roll 2d6, add your strength. Ah, dude, sick. 18. Awesome. Roll your d10.
I like to tell first-time players to think of it like you're telling an interactive movie rather than playing like a video game. Speaking of new players, this rules light approach makes it way easier to get new players into the game. Instead of needing to study a 320-page rulebook or a 680-page rulebook, all your players need is their class's playbook, the basic moves, and the special moves. Remember alignment? You know, that chart that's used to gauge your character's morality within the world, but is mostly just used for memes now? It's pretty much completely useless in D&D, right? Okay, theoretically, you can use it to get further immersed into your character, blah, 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 but how many people actually use alignment as it's intended? Seems like every single post on DM's Guild is, I have a player who decided to be chaotic neutral, but he's actually evil. Doesn't actually mean anything. Dungeon World actually gives you a mechanical reason to play your character's alignment. You get XP for it. For example, a fighter can be good, neutral, or evil. If you choose good, anytime you defend someone that's weaker than you get XP. If you pick neutral, anytime you defeat a worthy opponent, you get XP. And if you're anytime you murder a defenseless person or a surrendering enemy, or be a murder hobo in general, you get XP. Every single class has its own alignment parameters that change how you get XP. But before you jump the gun, RPing your alignment isn't the only way you get experience points. Every character your player makes has a list of bonds, which are just ways that they can relate to the other characters in their party. For example, if you're playing a ranger, one of your bonds might be, I've guided Brokage before and they owe me for it. And if two characters resolve their bonds in a session, they both get XP. Other ways of getting XP include learning something new and interesting about the world, defeating a notable monster or enemy or big bad evil guy, and of course, getting fat, epic, purple loot. Now, there is one downside to Dungeon World. If the only way you can have fun playing a tabletop RPG is by playing an Arakoa, an Asimir, a botchling, you're not gonna have any fun playing Dungeon World. There's only 4 races available: human, elves, dwarves, and halflings, and they are class locked. That means there's no dwarven rangers, there's no halfling clerics, and there's no elvish paladins. The classes are also alignment locked because, as we all know, there has never been a good thief that has ever existed in media. Doesn't happen. Of course, if playing a chaotic Draugr paladin is that important to you, this game is stupid easy to mod. You can easily make up some rules for yourself, run it by your GM. I'm sure you can work something out, and there are online resources of people who've already done the work for you. If you can't be bothered to do that and it's 100% game breaking for you, click right here to check out the 5 differences between like the polar opposite system and, of course, D&D. Thanks for watching.